satisfied with the current status of the Russian-Pakistani military cooperation. We support regular contacts between the heads of the defense ministries, the heads of the general staff, and we also conduct regular joint exercises for military training, battlefield training, including the exercises for improving the anti-terrorist capacity. We continue providing training for the Pakistani servicemen in the institutions of the Russian Defense Ministry. We also talked about the plans to build up the humanitarian, cultural and educational links. We are satisfied to note that the Pakistani universities, in particular universities of Balochistan, Peshawar and Islamabad, have expressed their interest for creating the centers for Russian language. And we continue to provide state scholarships for Pakistani citizens in our Russian universities. We have a positive outlook of the dialogue between our foreign ministries, including the dialogue within the framework of the United Nations, the global organization. This helps us find more efficient solutions for the current regional and international issues. Naturally, we spend a lot of time talking about the situation in Afghanistan, which is directly linked with the task of eliminating the terrorist threats in our region, since unfortunately the threat still exists in the territory of Afghanistan, but efforts are being taken, and we have agreed to use the capacities of the SCO, in particular the SCO Afghanistan Contact Group. We have a shared interest in building up cooperation within the SCO. We agreed that this is a very promising format of multilateral diplomacy, of multipolar diplomacy, and the efficiency of this organization is proven by the rising interest from the other countries for closer cooperation with the organization and even joining it as members. I have shared my views of the situation related with the consequences of the Western activities to use Ukraine to launch a hybrid war against the Russian Federation, including the creation at our borders of direct threats to Russian security, including the consecutive policy to turn the Kiev regime into a tool for destroying all the rights of the Russians and the Russian speakers of the eastern and other regions of Ukraine. We are in favor of the position, and we need for the global community to realize the seriousness of the situation and take consideration of the proposals that used to be voiced in the European continent and now are being voiced in the global context, for the need to find common approaches for security based solely on the principles of equal and indivisible security for each and every state of our planet. We are grateful to our Pakistani friends for their impartial and balanced position on the matters which are currently discussed on the global agenda in the international organizations under the pretext of the Ukrainian conflict. The visit of the minister was very timely, and we have a clear confirmation of our mutual aspiration to expand cooperation in all the areas. We will continue supporting each other.
Foreign Minister Lavrov, distinguished members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I would like to thank His Excellency Mr. Lavrov for the warm welcome. I am pleased to observe that my visit is taking place in the year which marks the 75th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Pakistan and Russia. Today we had a friendly, detailed and productive discussion on all aspects of our bilateral relations as well as regional and global issues. Strengthening relations with the Russian Federation remains an important priority for Pakistan. We believe that Pakistan-Russia relations not only serve our respective national interests, but also contribute to regional and global stability and security. We intend to intensify cooperation with Russia in the areas of trade, economy, security, counterterrorism, defense, as well as cultural, educational, and people-to-people contacts. Last year in September, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and President Vladimir Putin had a successful summit meeting in Samarkand. Just recently, the 8th session of the Pakistan-Russia Intergovernmental Commission on Trade, Economy, Scientific and Technical Cooperation was held in Islamabad. The IGC covered a wide agenda encompassing economic, trade, and especially energy cooperation. Pakistan views Russia as an important player in the West, South, and Central Asia. Pakistan and Russia have good cooperation on Afghanistan. We aim to continue cooperation with our Russian friends on realizing our common goals of peace and stability in Afghanistan. We also discussed bilateral cooperation at multilateral fora, especially within the United Nations and the Shanghai Cooperation. We have a firm belief that all conflicts can be resolved peacefully and that there are no obstacles which diplomacy cannot surmount. The Ukrainian conflict is no exception. Developing countries like Pakistan are facing negative consequences in terms of its economic impact. We trust that the strong tradition of diplomacy of the Russian state will help achieve a peaceful resolution of the conflict. I would like to thank once again my gracious host, Minister Lavrov, for his invitation. We hope to continue high-level contacts and reiterate Pakistan's commitment to deepening and strengthening relations with the Russian Federation. I thank you.
Please, the Pakistani television.
Mr. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari Sahab, this year's Pakistan and Russia are celebrating 75th anniversary of the diplomatic relations. Your grandfather Zulfikar Ali Bhutto tried to deepen relationship with Soviet Union, whereas your mother Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto and your father Mr. Asif Ali Zardari made all efforts to establish good ties with Russia. Today, how do you see this relationship between two countries?
Thank you so much for your question, particularly noting the three-generational input from my family in enhancing Pakistan-Russia relations. As the foreign minister noted, Shahid Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, when he was energy minister, foreign minister, and prime minister, worked on enhancing bilateral relations. As you mentioned, Shahid Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto in her term as prime minister made her efforts. My father, President Zardari, when he was president of Pakistan, contributed in his capacity to the enhancing of bilateral relations between Pakistan and Russia, and I'm particularly proud that as Foreign Minister of Pakistan, I too will now be playing my part in enhancing bilateral relations between Pakistan and Russia. The 75th anniversary of our diplomatic relations is a happy occasion, and we plan on commemorating it in a befitting manner. Our growing relations are characterized by increased pace of high-level exchanges, including the summit meeting last year in September in Samarkand, and our communication ministers visited Moscow last November for the signing of an agreement on international road transport. Our Minister of State for Petroleum had fruitful meetings in Moscow in December 2022 and on expansion of energy cooperation. And as I already mentioned, we have held a successful 8th session of the Intergovernmental Commission in Islamabad earlier this month. Also, the special representative of Russia and Afghanistan visited Islamabad. There is will and enthusiasm on both sides to not only follow up through with our existing plans for cooperation, but also to look for new vistas of cooperation for a brighter future between our two countries.
Thank you. Sergei Viktorovich.
Distinguished Minister Lavrov, previously there used to be 2 direct flights between Moscow and Karachi. Are you discussing the possibilities of renewing the flights between the two countries? Yes, we are discussing the possibility of renewing the flights between the relevant authorities, the civil aviation authorities of Russia and Pakistan. As you know, we attach special importance to the commercial component, and we are considering this matter. Thank you. The next question from Lenta.ru agency. Valentina Schwartz. Good afternoon. I have a question for each of the ministers. A question for Minister Lavrov. The partnership in the SCO is one of the most important tracks of cooperation between Russia and Pakistan, and many countries are expressing their interest in joining this organization. Could you tell which countries could enter the SCO this year, and are you expanding the list of the candidates for membership in the organization? Perhaps there are some new countries. And a question for the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Pakistan. In the previous weeks, Russia and Pakistan have been actively talking to sign a deal on the oil supply. When can we expect the signing of the deal? And has Pakistan managed to receive guarantees from the United States that they would not block the deal or introduce the secondary sanctions? And what currency will be used to pay for the Russian oil? Thank you very much. As for the question regarding the expansion of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, we are expecting the membership of the Islamic Republic of Iran as a full-fledged member, and we have also started the official procedures for the Belarus for joining the organization, and there is a number of countries who have received the status of the dialogue partner, including numerous Arab countries. The list is in open access and you can see it for yourself.
Question. Indeed, we've had and continue to have detailed conversations on energy cooperation between Pakistan and Russia. As you may be aware, Pakistan faces severe energy crises and problems. We are faced with an exorbitant import bill as far as hydrocarbons are concerned, and I am expecting positive progress on our discussions between Pakistan and Russia on energy cooperation. The recent visit to Pakistan also, I've received incredibly positive feedback on the topic. And as far for other countries, I expect them not to interfere in the bilateral relations between Pakistan and Russia. We absolutely will do whatever is necessary to provide our people with the necessities that they require. The people of Sindh, the people of Balochistan, the people of South Punjab, the people of South Pakhtunkhwa were devastated by the most historic climate catastrophe that we have ever witnessed in the floodings that we faced last year. As a result of that, we have severe economic challenges that Pakistan are facing at this point in time, and we will certainly do whatever we can to alleviate, to reduce the difficulties that the poor people of Pakistan are facing.
Пожалуйста, известия.
Известия agency, please. Good afternoon. I have a question for both ministers. What is the status on the construction of the Pakistani stream, and when will we see the implementation of the agreements? Let me start, if I may. We've already said that this is a matter that was discussed during the Intergovernmental Commission session on the Trade and Economic Cooperation, which took place 10 days ago in Islamabad. We are currently in the advanced stages of work on the agreement, and I am sure that in the near future we will see more progress. And on this matter, I would like to talk in more detail about what was mentioned in the question for my colleague regarding the guarantees of the United States that they would not interfere with our energy deals. They will make obstacles, I'm sure, since the United States has no shame and they act in a very arrogant manner and saying to everyone that they should not deal with Russia. There were recently threats for China as well as India and Turkey. There is essentially no country which hasn't received such neo-colonial messages from the United States. But at the same time, the vast majority of the countries, including our friends from Pakistan, as mentioned once again by my colleague, are first of all guided by their legitimate national interests, the interests of developing their own economy, the interest of helping their people, providing them with all the necessities, including energy. But we know what actions can be used by our Western colleagues. These are not only the threats of secondary sanctions, they also resort to terrorist attacks, as it happened with the explosion of the Nord Stream and Nord Stream 2. Remember, as soon as that happened, an hour or two later, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Poland, Mr. Sikorski, immediately wrote a tweet saying thank you to the United States of America. He quickly removed the tweet, but as it turns out, the truth cannot be hidden. And recently speaking in Congress, Madam Victoria Nuland, the Deputy Secretary of State, said that last year numerous senators and she personally and the State Department were happy to note that the Nord Streams had turned into a pile of metal at the bottom of the Baltic Sea. This is quite a ridiculous confession. But what's even funnier is the words of Mr. Olaf Scholz in his interview that was released yesterday in one of the German newspapers. He was asked when the investigation would be over, and he said that the explosions took place in the waters of Sweden and Denmark, that the investigation was difficult and it was still going on, and in countries that respect the rule of law, like Germany, the officials shall refrain from any suppositions and only speak out when they have the solid proof. That was a quote from Olaf Scholz. Let me draw your attention to the fact that no one was even thinking of following the advice of Mr. Scholz and the principle, which is valid in all the states. The majority of the countries of the European Union, under the pressure from the United States and United Kingdom, were introducing sanctions for the so-called poisoning in Salisbury, for which there was no proof, and dozens of our official requests through the international conventions were simply ignored in connection with this case. And Germany was also not cooperating with us on the supposed poisoning of Alexei Navalny. There were no documents which could confirm the accusations that they made against us in regards to this poisoning. And I really hope that Germany, guided by the principles of rule of law, will follow its principles in reality. And the United States as well, I hope, will comply with international law in accordance with their role in the global arena.
Energy cooperation, the unity government in Pakistan is committed to meet the needs, the energy needs and other needs of the people of Pakistan, come what may. We've had detailed discussions on this, and we're hoping to see progress as far as interference is concerned. Mr. Minister, many foreign ministers will stand next to you and perhaps emphasize the divisions internationally. Pakistan sees itself as a bridge builder. We want to see cooperation regionally, internationally, and even between the great powers. We value our relationship with Russia. We don't see it as contingent to developments in international relations. We equally value our relationship with the United States and with Europe. Pakistan will consistently be a voice for peace, dialogue, and diplomacy in the international community. We have consistently advocated for a peaceful resolution to these disputes that obviously affect the people of Russia, affect the people of Ukraine, affect the people of Europe, affect the people of America, but also affect the people in the developing world. And we are hopeful that dialogue and diplomacy will prevail over polarization and conflict.
And the final question from the Sputnik Agency. Good afternoon, Ksenia Shikhalova, Sputnik Information Agency. I have a question for both ministers. According to the official statements, the meetings of the group of the Afghanistan neighbors at the ministerial level will take place in the first quarter of this year. Do you have the date and the venue for this ministerial meeting, and what are the matters that will be discussed during this meeting? And at this point, do we have an understanding regarding the creation of an inclusive government in Afghanistan, as declared by the global community as a condition for the official recognition of the current Taliban authorities in the country? Thank you. Well, in order to be more specific, let me note that the establishment of an inclusive government in Afghanistan or this government. At the same time, the lack of an agreement at this stage is not considered as an option you mentioned. Also express their active interest, and the format of Afghanistan neighbors is exactly the right format that they want to promote.
Which have a lot in common in the way we view things. And I absolutely endorse what the foreign minister is saying. Whether it is the issue of an inclusive government, whether it is the issue of terrorism, whether it is the issue of rights, these are not prerequisites of the government of Afghanistan.
खारजा बिलावल भुट्टो जरदारी और रूस के वजीर खारजा इस वक्त सहाफियों के